Can you take us back to when you were first diagnosed and like what was going through your mind about how you'd even get to treatment?
My situation is long. My journey has been very long. I cannot believe this, but in September, it will be 5 years since my body was diagnosed with advanced colon cancer. So back then, it did not start with faraway treatment. It did not start with faraway things because we live right outside of Philadelphia and we're very fortunate for wonderful surgeons and wonderful oncologists with the treatment options here. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I want to say my journey started in September. They found a baseball size tumor in the right side of my colon. I always like to tell everyone this. My only major symptom was I was craving ice like a crazy person. I could not get enough
Wow.
ice for 9 months. So,
Wow.
9 months, I had blood work 2 times that went undiagnosed, and I actually had a procedure thinking it was to do with my menstrual cycle, perimenopausal. I was only 44 at the time, so I was considered very young in the colon cancer world. So, long story short, the ice was a symptom because, from what I understand, the tumor was sucking blood and it was creating me to be very iron deficient. If you want, I can tell you how all that came to light.
Yeah.
I kept saying something's wrong. My family kept saying something's wrong.
Right.
With the ice chewing, I kept asking for blood work, and the normal blood panel kept coming back fine. And then I was on Facebook, and by the grace of God, there's a woman that I did some philanthropy work with. Never met her face to face. So her and I were
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, and she put up a long post, September 2021. She put up a long, long post. Thank goodness she was oversharing about craving ice and how she discovered she needed a ferritin test, which is not in the regular blood panel. So everything was checking off. I was getting out of breath walking up steps. I was nodding off at red lights. I was restless legs and craving ice. They're all typical symptoms of the low iron, dangerously low ferritin, which I never heard of before. So I called my doctor and I said, I need something called a ferritin test. She ordered it. And then it was the first day of school for my teenage daughters 5 years ago for school and said you need to see a hematologist. Okay, you're anemic. You're extremely anemic, and you need to see a hematologist. When I called a hematologist that they recommended right in Collegeville, which was mainline health
Uh-huh.
system, they answered the cancer center. And I was like, oh, I have the
Oh,
wrong number, right? That
right.
took me back. I was like, that doesn't make sense. So fast forward, they had to figure out the source of the bleeding. That led me to get a colonoscopy, which when I woke up from the colonoscopy, this is back COVID times. So my husband
Yeah.
would come in with me. I forgot about all that too. That was a huge, huge hurdle. When I woke up, and I just remember being freezing. That's also a side effect, a symptom of the long freezing when I woke up from that, shivering from that procedure. And still groggy, a doctor told me that they found a large mass in my cecum. Didn't even know what that was, in the right side of my
Oh, yeah.
all of this
Okay.
stuff, all of this stuff that really fast track things. Because I was 44 years old, and because thank goodness we live where we live, one of the best colorectal surgeons is at Lankenau. They got me into Lankenau, and because that GI doctor said you're going to need to get this mass out, after appointments and all the things. The colorectal surgeon said you're so young to have something so big, because colon
Yeah.
cancer is very slow growing, where if you're a regular
Okay.
person, it's 10 years you need a colonoscopy. He said, we need to test you for something called Lynch syndrome. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then
Yeah.
Lynch syndrome is the genetic component. It's the, nobody's ever heard of Lynch syndrome. Do you ever hear of BRCA for breast? The
Yeah.
genetic, this is the genetic piece for colon cancer. So here I am. I have Lynch syndrome, and then that just opened up another thing. One of your parents has to have it. Well, so 80% of Lynch patients get colon cancer, and I want to say 60% get cervical or something. So They said, not only are we going to take out the mass, we recommend you taking out your whole large intestine and getting a hysterectomy at the same time. What?
Yeah.
So it was a whole thing. I did 5 emergency iron infusions to survive the surgery, and it was one thing
Just
after
to
another.
survive the surgery?
To get
To
this,
survive the
get
surgery?
this. I mean, this surgery was an 8 hour, 9 hour ordeal, right?
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
that all happened between, and we're talking scans, appointments, second opinions, all of this between the end of September. Well, yeah, the end of September, and then I had my first major surgery, life changing surgery, November 5th. So that's before treatment, before any of that.
This was 2021, right?
2021, correct, correct. And then I deep dove into the Lynch world, into the colon cancer world. I became obsessed and I understood everything. At that time, my body was stage 3. This is one of the first flaws, struggles that I experienced was I knew that chemotherapy would not work for what my body had. However, at the time, and I think it's changed since then, my body had to experience chemotherapy and fail at chemotherapy to get to the treatment that I needed, which is immunotherapy. So
You're talking about insurance and what's
insurance
covered,
said,
right?
yes, exactly. Insurance said I had to go that route first. So after 12 horrendous chemotherapy treatments that lasted 7 months, I would take home, I cannot believe when I think back to this, I would take home chemotherapy. I would get treatment all day on a Wednesday, take home it in a fanny pack, and I would, on Friday, 3 days later, I would get disconnected from it. A nurse would come to my house and get disconnected. That was wild because the entire time I knew it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Right, right.
I hope that has changed. It
I
sounds like
think
you
it
don't know for
has.
certain.
I think immunotherapy is now offered to
Good.
Lynch patients. It's just the category of disease that my body has, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah.
my very first scan, I had a recurrence, and which threw me right into another surgery, and then I got the at the time it was Keytruda that I was on, and since then the whole windy road. I was treated at Mainline Health because I got second opinions at Penn and other
Yeah.
local places in Philadelphia, and it was standard care. Everybody would say you would need Folfax chemotherapy, you would get treated all day one day and get disconnected, whatever. 3 days
Yeah.
later, everybody was the same. You might as well just go to somewhere, a location that's as close to home as possible because you're going to be very sick. So that was helpful. That was helpful. That Penn told me that, and other places told me that because then I just went right 10 minutes down the street in Collegeville, and
Yeah.
I put my time in there. So anyway, the beginning, and then I was lucky enough for 11 months I was on Keytruda before another reoccurrence.